state your name for the record as I call on your jurisdiction. Agora Hills.
Deborah Klein Lopez here.
Thank you. Alhambra.
Jeff Maloney here.
Arcadia. Arcadia absent for roll call. Beverly Hills.
Julian Gold here.
Calabasas.
Edward Albrecht here.
Camarillo.
Susan Santangelo here.
Carson. Carson, I see Director Hicks here. Thank you. Claremont.
Corey Kalakai, present.
Culver City.
Yasmin Amani McMorrin present.
Thank you. Hawaiian Gardens. Hawaiian Gardens absent for roll call. Hawthorne. Okay, Hawthorne absent for roll call. Hermosa Beach.
Here.
Thank you. Was that Director Kraus?
Yes, sorry, yes.
Okay, thank you. La Cañada Flintridge.
Stephanie Fossen here.
LA County.
Here.
Thank you, Director Campbell. Linwood.
Juan Munoz Guevara here.
Thank you, Malibu.
Marianne Riggins here.
Manhattan Beach.
David Lesford here.
Monrovia.
Director Belden here.
Moore Park.
Barrett here.
Ojai.
Michelle Ellison here.
Oxnard.
Bert Pearl here.
Paramount.
Michelle Mueller here.
Port Hueneme. Redondo Beach.
Waller here.
Rolling Hills Estates. Rolling Hills Estates absent for roll call. Santa Monica. Santa Monica absent for roll call. Santa Paula.
Cross White present.
Sierra Madre.
Robert Parkhurst, present.
Simi Valley.
Rocky Roads, present.
Thank you. South Pasadena. Thank you. Temple City. Temple City absent for roll call. I do see Hawthorne present. Thank you. City of Ventura. City of Ventura absent for roll call. Ventura County.
Vianney Lopez here.
Thank you. West Hollywood.
By the grace of the traffic gods, John Erickson is here.
Thank you. Westlake Village. Westlake Village absent for roll call. Whittier.
Marianne Pacheco Whittier.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
You need extra?
Thank you. All right, we will move on to general public comment, and I don't see any in the downtown area. Is there any public comment from any of our remote locations? Nothing from Burundi? Director Rhodes?
Surprisingly, no.
All right,
At 11 o'clock at night.
Just checking.
In Burundi.
We appreciate whatever time it is across the world that you're here with us. So thank you. And it was publicly noticed. So if there could have been public comment, just saying. All right, then we will move on to our consent agenda. And if there is any move to pull something from the consent agenda, we can pull it. Otherwise, not seeing any, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second, Parkhurst.
Sorry. Second.
All right, I actually have a motion by Guevara and a second by Director Parkhurst.
Sorry.
Chair Klein Lopez, how do you vote?
Aye.
Director Maloney,
Yes.
Director Gold,
Yes.
Director Albrecht,
Yes.
Director Santangelo,
Yes.
Director Hicks. Director Hicks, how do you vote? You're on mute. A thumbs up if you vote yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Director Kalaikai,
Yes.
Director McMorrin,
Yes.
Director Montero,
Yes.
Director Kraus,
Yes.
Director Fossen,
Yes.
Director Campbell,
Yes.
Director Munoz-Guevara,
Yes.
Director Riggins,
Yes.
Director Lesser,
Yes.
Director Belden,
Yes.
Director Barrett,
Yes.
Director Ellison,
Yes.
Director Perello,
Yes.
Director Mueller,
Yes.
Director Hernandez, Director Waller,
Yes.
Director Zuckerman,
Yes. Excuse me, I just arrived. I arrived late. Is this minutes or consent
you're
calendar?
voting on the consent agenda.
Yes.
Thank you. Director Crosswhite,
Yes.
Director Parkhurst,
Yes.
Director Rhodes,
Yes.
Director Ferguson, Director Newman.
Aye.
Thank you. Vice Chair Lopez,
Yes.
Director Erickson. Director Erickson, how do you vote on the consent agenda?
Yes.
Thank you. Westlake Village,
Yes.
thank you. Director Pacheco,
Aye.
thank you. This motion passes.
Thank you. All right, well then we're going to move on to our regular agenda. We have some very exciting action items on today's agenda, starting with item 12 regarding the Sunzia project, which we know well, but we have some exciting opportunities to present to the board. So with that, I will turn it over to Ted to queue us up for a presentation.
Great, thank you, and thanks everyone for your time today. I'm going to turn it over to Lindsay Descagna, our Vice President of Power Supply, but also just want to thank a whole slew of our structured contracts team and Chief Operating Officer Matt Langer for figuring out how to get us some more well-needed wind energy when that's not the flavor of the month. And how it is really well fit into our portfolio. And I think Lindsay's going to talk quite a bit about that and the opportunity for wind, and take it away.
Thank you, Ted, and good afternoon, directors of the board. I am pleased to present an opportunity to contract for 125 megawatts of incremental capacity at the Sunzia Wind Facility, project that I know some of you are familiar with and some of you have even visited. So let's go ahead and dive in. So almost 2 years ago now, on November 2nd, 2023, CPA's board approved a power purchase agreement for a 575 megawatt share of the 3,650 megawatt Sunzia wind facility, which is located in New Mexico. In March of this year, CPA received a bilateral proposal for an incremental 125 megawatts portion of the Sunzia wind project. And on June 25th of this year, the Energy Committee authorized staff to proceed with PPA negotiations. The 125 megawatt portion of the Sunzia wind project is split into two separate PPAs because the project is being built at two different facilities, a north and south facility, to aid in project financing. The proposed Sunzia North PPA would be 37.3 megawatts, and the proposed Sunzia South PPA would be 87.7 megawatts, totaling 125 megawatts. Wind projects, as Ted said, continue to be scarce. I've mentioned this in the past, and I'll talk more about that in the coming slides. In a more recent wrinkle, projects in earlier stages of development are facing uncertain futures due to changes in tax credits, tariffs, and other federal policies. However, Sunzia is in an advanced stage of construction and is unlikely to be impacted by these changing policies. Wind energy is a very crucial component of CPA's current and future portfolio diversity, and I'll share more about why as we move into the presentation. And at this stage, staff has concluded negotiations and is requesting the board to approve and authorize the chief executive officer to execute the 2 SunZia PPAs. So let's refresh on the SunZia Wind project, as it is an impressive facility. Again, the project is located in Lincoln, Torrance, and San Miguel counties in central New Mexico. A new transmission line being built just for the project will bring the power to both Arizona and into the California Independent System Operator, or CAISO. Energy will be delivered into the CAISO at the Palo Verde intertie, where the project has a 2,131 megawatts of firm transmission. The project will also provide resource adequacy with a flat profile, which has a significant value under the current slice of day RA compliance framework, where technology is really king. The original PPA included a provision to split or bifurcate the project into 2 in order to facilitate financing. And instead of including this ability to bifurcate into 2 facilities into the contract, we're just starting the 125 megawatts as bifurcated with two PPAs, north and south, at the outset. And the bifurcation really has no material impact on CPA. We receive the proportional sale of all of the energy from the north and south projects that flow to CAISO, so no impact to us on the bifurcation. You can see here on the map the location of the north and south projects. They're in the central New Mexico area, and then the new transmission line winding its way over into Arizona to the Palo Verde intertie. The developer, Pattern Energy, is very well established. They have an operating portfolio of 35 renewable facilities and have placed approximately 6 gigawatts of wind generation into service in its history, including the Western Spirit Project, which supplies LADWP and other CCAs in California. Okay, so let's get into the details of the contract here. So again, size 125 megawatts total, split between the north and south projects. We'll be buying resource adequacy and renewable energy. Developers Pattern Energy. The contract term is 15 years, again, located in New Mexico. The commercial operation date. So this contract is unique in that it has kind of 2 periods for different products. There's going to be an initial period of the contract that will be RA only, so resource adequacy only, so no renewable energy, starting in October 31st of 2026, which is the same online date as the existing 575 megawatt contract that we have for SunZia. And then starting January 1st, 2029, the remainder of the delivery term will start, and that includes CPA contracting for all of the attributes from the facility, including the energy, the renewable energy credits, and the RA. And we did this very intentionally to structure the contract in a way that best aligns with the timing of CPA's need for renewable energy, which is really in the 2029-2030 timeframe. On the price, the incremental SunZia offer is priced higher than the existing PPA due to shifts in the market and due to a lower risk profile compared to when the original contract was executed in 2023, meaning the project is at a much more mature state and is de-risked compared to a couple of years ago. That said, the incremental price does compare favorably to recent wind offers that we've received. And just really importantly, I'll note that the incremental contract would not impact the original contract price of the existing PPA, which remains the same and untouched. And I'm going to talk a lot more about the rationale, but in summary, the rationale for the contracts is due to the wind delivery profile, the renewable energy value, the RA value, and the project certainty, which is just a really big one right now. Looking at the qualitative scores on the right table, in terms of value, the project ranks in the 2nd quartile and is MPV positive relative to offers that we just received in the 2025 Clean Energy RFO. The project has a high development score and also scores high in workforce development. And environmental stewardship is neutral, along with benefits to disadvantaged communities. And the project location is medium because it's out of state. Okay, so we'll talk about the reason wind is so important in the next slide, but it's a really critical resource for our portfolio, and the opportunities to procure wind really remain scarce. There were no wind projects offered in last year's Clean Energy RFO. We did receive 2 offers for wind in this year's Clean Energy RFO. However, they were priced higher than the SunZia offer, and only one of the proposals actually provides resource adequacy. There have been issues with other out-of-state wind resources. So in Idaho, the Lava Ridge Wind Project was canceled by executive order. In Wyoming, multiple wind projects have been delayed due to federal permitting and also due to local opposition. So in this next slide, we're really going to get into the rationale for SunZia. Wind energy is important to our portfolio because it is complementary to the generating profile of solar. It provides renewable energy in the evening and at night when solar isn't delivering. SunZia in particular has a generation profile that is flatter throughout the day compared to in-state wind. You can kind of see that here on the top right table on the right with the average hourly generation profile in orange, kind of across all hours of the day at a pretty flat rate. Baseload renewable technologies like geothermal and biomass are also great and also can fill need for energy in the evening and at night. But availability for those types of resources are also very limited, and the cost is very, very high. You might also ask about energy storage, which also plays an important role by shifting solar from the middle of the day into the evening hours. However, storage generally, runs out after 4 hours, so it kind of drops off after 11 p.m. or so. So kind of due to the overall scarcity of wind projects, the higher development costs, and the added value of the delivery profile, wind contracts typically do result in kind of higher nominal prices relative to solar. But because of all of the additional value, the wind compares favorably on a net present value basis when compared to solar and other resources. Finally, in the bottom chart here, you can see the delivery profile of SunZia has a very complementary profile to CPA's load, which is that top line in the black. And then you can see a typical delivery profile of solar in green, which clearly kind of leaves us with a need in those shoulder hours early in the morning and also at night. All right. So a bit more, just kind of really summarize the rationale for SunZia. Going to hit this point home here. Wind is scarce, and it's a crucial resource for our portfolio diversity, and we do not anticipate many more offers for wind in the coming years. The SunZia project is in the second quartile in terms of valuation relative to the offers that we just received in the 2025 RFO, has a positive net present value, and a price that is lower than any other recent wind opportunity that we've received. The profile from SunZia is flat, baseload-like profile under slice of day, and the incremental RA from SunZia would offset purchases of RA from natural gas resources and can be used in non-solar hours for RA compliance. And SunZia, again, is a mature project, can't emphasize this enough, with established transmission, interconnection, deliverability, and basically with near certainty that the project will achieve commercial operation. The project has no tariff risk and carries very low tax credit risk since it's already under construction, which is just not the same situation for newer projects. The project will allow us to make meaningful progress toward our RA and renewable energy needs. And the 125 megawatts of incremental capacity would remain CPA's third largest counterparty by capacity, representing about 15% of CPA's long-term portfolio. However, the more near-term COD does reduce development risk in our portfolio. SunZia would contribute to procurement targets for the 2025 Clean Energy and Reliability RFO, so we wouldn't have to buy as much, but we do still have an open position to fill for both renewable energy and RA in the 2025 Clean Energy RFO, where those projects are slated to come online in the 2029 to 2032 timeframe. All right. So we're going to get to our action today. CPA is seeking board approval for the Cinzia Wind North and South Power Purchase Agreements, which would add an incremental 125 megawatts to CPA's existing contract for 575 megawatts. So today's action requested is to approve and authorize the CEO to execute the 15-year renewable power purchase agreements with Cinzia Wind North LLC and Cinzia Wind South LLC for a total of 125 megawatts. And I believe that concludes the presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that excellent presentation. Before we move into questions, I just want to throw it over to our Energy Chair, Director Parkhurst, to see if you have anything to add from the committee's point of view.
I'll just add a couple of things. So the committee reviewed this at our June 25th meeting. There were questions about why wind. Why should we be doing wind right now? I think that Director or Vice President Descagna went through and gave us a pretty clear reason why to do it. So we had many of those same questions at that point in time, and you can see it reflected in this presentation, and it was unanimously approved by the committee.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll start with questions or comments in this room. Director Ferguson, would you like to kick us off?
For those y-axis values, they show the units but not the values. So I was kind of curious with what.
Let's see. So we've got the hours, so that we just chose like a typical day in a year, let's say 5 years after the contract starts. So we have the hours of the day at the bottom, and then we have the megawatt hours of generation on the Y.
So like, for me to kind of keep context, like let's say when we are looking at about 125.
Sorry, Whittier here. We can barely hear what's being discussed.
Oh, maybe I'm too far away from the mic. Is that?
That's better.
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, so what I'm trying to clarify is that I can see the units that are on the y-axis. I'm just wondering what the number amounts.
Yes. Sorry,
Yes.
didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, that's the question.
Okay, great. Yeah, so it's just representative of the shape. So it just says megawatt hours, but it's not scaled to anything in particular. So, I mean, if we showed, so the thick black line at the top is the shape of our load on a typical day. So you can see it's a little less during the day, high peaks in the evening. If we showed 125 megawatts of wind, it would be almost like just stuck on the bottom line. Like it would be too small. So what we did is we just scaled it up to the same, like similar size. So you can see compared to a similar amount of solar. So I would say those are the orange and the green lines are on roughly the same scale. So 125 megawatts of solar would actually get all the way up to 125.
Okay.
In the middle of the day, whereas wind may not be all the way at the max capacity, but you can see it's sort of peaks in the morning and the evening, a little dip during the day. But
Okay.
it's just more for comparison to give you a sense of how it all fits together, not to scale.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. That helps. That helps me a bit. And then I think there were in the rating, we had the slide that was kind of going over the ratings. The location fell in at medium. Can you provide a little bit of context for how those things are kind of determined and evaluated?
Yeah, so
Can you repeat the
rank-
question being
Yes,
asked? Because online we can't hear.
Okay, yes. So the question was for project location, how we rank them in the low, medium, and high schema. So we rank high if it's in LA or Ventura counties. We rank a project medium if it is either somewhere else in California or out of state in what's called a federally designated energy community. And the federally designated energy community is a community that has a high level of fossil fuel employment and a high level of unemployment. And so it's based on census tracts. And so if your census tract has those two high things, it's also it's designated as an energy community where you want to have new energy investment. So it's either in state California, but not in LA or Ventura, or out of state in one of those designated communities. And then a low would be out of state, not in a federally designated energy community.
Okay. And so which of these evaluation aspects looks at the like transmission line interconnection aspect of these projects as far as like where do we account for like system operability, flexibility, et cetera, with the location of these facilities?
So a couple of things. So the operations is in development score.
Yeah.
You know, firm interconnection, all of those sorts of things is like we have a very high confidence in development score that this project is going to, or this contract is going to result in actual energy to
Able
our
to be delivered across
being
the
able,
existing lines, et cetera. Right.
That's right. So that's one part of thinking about your question. The other one is in the valuation, we're looking at where does it interconnect? What is the pricing at that particular interconnection? So it goes into the net present value and value score.
Okay. Thank you. That helps clarify.
Thank you, Director Ferguson. Good questions. Director Gold.
So thank you. I'm very supportive of this. I sort of have yin and yang of the same question. I'm not sure which is the yin or the yang, but so the first is if this represents 15% of our portfolio, does that of itself incur risk?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, because of the very mature stage of this project, we, you know, have a lot of confidence that, you know, in the late stage that it's in, it's already started construction. Construction is actually ahead of schedule. That the project is going to achieve commercial operation. We actually have larger amounts of capacity amongst other projects with other developers. So this is, you know, not the you know, most capacity that we have with a single developer, but given that it is a single project, we, you know, feel very confident in the ability for the project to come online.
I'll just add, I think when we look at concentration risk, I think there's at least two components of it. There's the pre-development concentration risk. So if we've got a lot of contracts with an individual developer that has not come online, that is more of a concern than necessarily stuff that's operating. Because there the concentration risk has gone down quite a bit. So I think Lindsay's point that she made in the presentation is really goes to, yes, this isn't online, but you know, we're probably going to start getting test energy from this project maybe even before the calendar year is out. So it's kind of how we think about that concentration risk. Once these projects are up and running, it's less of a problem, that concentration.
From a financial point of view, how about from a force majeure point of view? The major earthquake that took out the transmission line or something that looked like that. Does that pose risk? Is that evaluated anywhere? It's a big transmission line.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly the kind of risk that you could incur. The one thing that we would look at in that case, especially, is that the seller doesn't get paid unless they deliver electricity to us and their other off-takers. There's a number of off-takers. So they're going to be very highly incentivized to get that transmission line fixed as quickly as possible. But absolutely, there's a risk when you have a particular transmission line delivering power to the grid, whether it's this particular project or any of our other projects. There's always some kind of line that connects you to the grid. And so that's always a risk that you face with that kind of force majeure event or anything else that can happen.
But here you have 15% of our total load going through one wire.
Right. So what I'm getting at with the point about them being incentivized to fix it is you think about, sure, there's the possibility that risk plays out. Then the question is, for how long are we disrupted?
Right.
And so I think you'd have a big problem if you had, let's say, years of a disruption as a result of a transmission outage. If you had a month or two, that's something that we would generally be able to manage around.
So here's the yang part of it. Should we buy more? If in fact wind is hard to find, we're comfortable with the risk, the price is right. Is there some reason we picked this amount and not more? And I presume there is. But that said, do we have an option to go back to them in some period of time and say, we'd like more at the same price?
Sure. So we talked about doing more, and where we ended up at 125, which was when the review committee looked at this. There were a couple different sizes that we talked about, and this is where the review committee landed. The reason for not doing more goes back to what Lindsay was talking about with the structure of this particular transaction and how it's different from the original SunZia transaction. So up until January 1st, 2029, we're only taking resource adequacy, because from a portfolio perspective, we really don't need more renewable energy until 2029 or 2030. And so when you think about that, if you wanted to start adding even more than the 125, then potentially you're getting out to where maybe we don't need it till 2031, 2032, and you're just pushing it out quite a bit farther. Ideally, we don't like to contract out that far, and I think it would be difficult for the developer to say, we're going to market it to a third party for maybe as long as 6-7 years. Like we pushed it 4, which was a compromise we were able to work out amongst the parties. But I think it would be hard to make this fit our exact need if we wanted to do more at this time.
I'll add one more thing. I think just teeing off what Matt noted is we originally looked at 500. I don't know if like 2 years ago, we originally looked at 500, and I think you and others asked, well, wait a second, why not do more? And so we went back and we got more. And so we already went from 500 to 575 2 years ago. Maybe we should have done more back then when the price was lower, but it was a higher risk project. Remember, we were we are the anchor tenant on this project, and we're the first ones. I think the other thing is piggybacking off of what Matt said. I think the developer really did us a solid, frankly, on allowing us to not take energy until 2029, to only do RA. That was actually a direct ask from me to their senior leadership, because we were not sure we wanted to incur. So that means they're taking the risk of selling this energy into the open market for a couple of years. We didn't want to bear that risk. But when you start to get, hey, can you do us that for 200 or 250? That's more risk for them that I'm not sure they would be willing to bear.
All right. Did you have okay, let's jump over to, yeah, was just looking to see if there was any other question in the room, and then we'll go over to County of Ventura and then the COG. So Ventura, take it away.
A question on slide 5, you have identified under the last bullet point, Idaho Lava Ridge, canceled by the executive order. Are we talking President Trump?
Yes, that's correct.
Is there anything else that you envision that he's got targets on?
Well, I don't know that I can predict that, but we have done due diligence on the potential for action on SunZia, and we believe that the project is very de-risked from that perspective.
Thank you. That's what we do.
Any other questions in Ventura? All right, then we'll move over to the COG.
Yeah. You mentioned the 2 projects that were canceled, Idaho and Wyoming. This one was not canceled. Is it because of the stage of development? Likely the reason this one was not canceled and they were?
Yeah, at very, very advanced stage of development. It also is fully on private land, so there's no, there's no BLM or other federal land permitting agencies involved. And so I think that there is less federal leverage over this project than a typical wind project.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions from our remote locations? Not seeing any. Any other questions, any comments before we make a motion? I mean, we also discussed this at our executive committee and obviously in favor of this project. I've had the opportunity to visit it. It's an amazing location. It's an amazing developer. I'm certainly in favor for this. So unless there's any other comments or questions. Oh, I'm here babbling along. And Director Parkhurst.
Fine. I did two small things. I think one, I would like to commend staff for getting RA out of this. This is one of the things that we really need quite often. Been one of our challenges over the years. So getting the RA, I think, is really significant. And yeah, and I'm in full support of it. So, and I move to approve the SunZia contract.
Second.
So we have one more question at the COG.
Oh, go for it. You're on mute.
Use when working for net present value.
Sorry, repeat that, Steve. Sorry.
Am I?
Yeah, now you're good.
Yeah. What discount rate do we apply when we're looking at NPV?
10%.
I think it's 7%.
7%. Yeah.
I'm waiting for my lifeline on that.
I believe it's
But I'm
7%.
pretty sure it's 7%.
Any other questions?
Confirmed, 7%.
Yeah, we're confirmed.
Oh, we're confirmed. 7%. Any other questions? We're having a bit of a microphone issue here today. All right, then I think we have a motion and a second. I think we're ready to proceed, Madam Clerk.
Thank you very much.
Through the discount.
A motion by Director Parkhurst and a second by Director Munoz Guevara to approve item 12 as presented. Chair Klein Lopez, how do you vote?
Aye.
Director Maloney?
Yes.
Director Gold?
Yes.
Director Albrecht?
Yes.
Director Santangelo?
Yes.
Director Hicks?
Yes.
Director Kalaikai?
Yes.
Director McMorrin?
Yes.
Director Montero?
Yes.
Director Kraus?
Yes.
Director Fossen?
Yes.
Director Campbell?
Yes.
Director Munoz Guevara?
Yes.
Director Riggins?
Yes.
Director Lesser?
Yes.
Director Belden?
Yes.
Director Barrett?
Yes.
Director Ellison?
Yes.
Director Perello?
Yes.
Director Mueller?
Yes.
Director Hernandez? Director Waller?
Yes.
Director Zuckerman?
Yes.
Director Crosswhite?
Yes.
Director Parkhurst?
Yes.
Director Rhodes?
Yes.
Director Ferguson?
Yes.
Director Chen?
Yes.
Director Newman?
Aye.
Vice Chair Lopez?
Yes.
Director Erickson? Director Erickson absent for this vote. Director Galvez?
Yes.
Director Pacheco?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. It's great news. All right, our next agenda item is another exciting item to discuss. Item 13, discussing offering membership to 2 additional cities, Cudahy and Fillmore. And again, I'll kick it over to you, Ted, to take the lead on this.
Great, thank you. We are here today to, after a year hiatus of not taking in entertaining new members, to propose inviting 2 new small cities, Cudahy and Fillmore, to join the JPA. So if we could go to the next slide, please. I will do it then. So gonna just talk a little bit about some backgrounds and priorities, talk somewhat about the particulars of Cudahy and Fillmore, some benefits and impacts, the potential financial scenarios, which is one of the things we really focus on when we look at expansion, and then look at that process. So over the past, I'd say 12 months, even more with Cudahy, who approached us in early of 2024, we've seen a couple of cities actually not just express interest. We take calls all the time from interested cities, but actually bring the idea of doing a study to their full councils to look at that at formally joining CPA. So the interesting about these 2 cities is that they do align with at least a couple of the 3 expansion priorities. I'll highlight a couple of them. With Fillmore, it really aligns with the filling in of the geographic hole. Fillmore is the last city in Ventura County that is not a member of CPA. So we would have the unincorporated Ventura County and all the cities in Ventura County if Fillmore ultimately decided to join. That's a really nice, solid base that we can think about. I think Fillmore's history with looking at CCAs has been long. They've looked at it, I think, 2 or 3 times now over the past decade, and now things are aligning to where they have confidence in CPA. We have confidence they can get it across the finish line, and so we're looking to do that. With Cudahy, it's interesting. It definitely fills out one of the priorities, which is increasing diversity of membership. The city there had a very traumatic environmental event about 10 years ago when the Delta Airlines airplane dumped fuel on the city to shed weight, landed on a school. And as often happens in disasters like that, it kind of caused a little bit of, combined with some other things, caused a little bit of a political shakeup. And the city started electing lots of folks who were very interested in environmental justice issues, sort of as a result of that, and other legacy pollution issues in that part of of Southeast LA County. So this seems like, again, an interesting and natural progression for them. The other thing I'll note is from the table on the bottom is they are small. We're talking about just over 11,000 eligible customers, less than 1% addition of annual load. They'd be ranked towards the bottom of load in terms of overall cities. So while the priorities they match quite well, I think the risk and potential impact to existing customers is small and definitely manageable. So a little bit more about the feasibility studies. So the way we work in this process is that each city needs to contribute $10,000 to doing a feasibility study. This is partly to offset some of our costs, but also to make sure that there's a real demonstrable interest. We think that this means that generally, if you all extend an invitation, that the invitation will ultimately be accepted. But we do have that out for a city that if an invitation is not extended, that we will refund their $10,000. So we primarily look at the financial impact to existing customers. We also, look at where can we supply that amount of energy. What about the resource adequacy position? Again, with these cities being small, don't think there's much of an issue there, but let's just say that we, got interest from a city like Torrance or Long Beach, where, you're looking at a very significant increase to load. We'd be looking at that ability to serve the load a little bit more carefully and a little bit more on the financial risk. And really the financial risk comes out at what's your view of where you think energy prices will go. And I see Omar is like laughing over here. We don't know where they could go up, they could go down. They do go up and they go down. But a lot of, how we look at that risk is we try to bookend it. How much, if it goes a lot up or a lot down, where's that risk lie? And so you'll see that in the studies in a couple of slides, it's within what we consider a manageable range. So the next slide, please. Obviously, benefits, you all know the benefits of membership in Clean Power Alliance. We're expanding it to more cities. We're filling those geographic holes, more people. A lot of synergies in terms of market strength, continuing to expand our influence. And as I mentioned, it's a small impact. We're looking at potential reduction in net position, or what our gains would be of between 0.1% and maybe 0.5% at an outlier, which works out to 10 to 15 cents in the first year monthly on a customer bill. So we're couple dollars a month. I mean, a couple of dollars a year at most in the first year. So let me go into that. Can you help me there? There we go. Back one more. One more. All right. So here's where we get into that potential financial impact. So as I mentioned, we do a range. We did a range based on different levels of rates and power charge indifference adjustment, which is what we think actually might be the most volatile over the next few years. And you can see going from left to right in that top table, you could see a projected net revenue decrease of 0.44% in the first year to what is our current forecast for 2028, which is, the first full year that they would be on board of 0.1%. There's even scenarios where if the PCIA were exactly what it is today, that it would have a positive impact on our net position and therefore result in decreasing bills for everybody. So that's also a potential outcome. It's the outcome actually that happened with our phase 6 customers who have resulted in a positive impact to the rest of the customer base, which is what you see in the next chart or table below. It's just a projected impact of expansion. It's that range. The first line looks at if you have a really negative impact, you're talking about 34 cents a month. Our base case is about a dime a month. But there's also scenarios where you could have a positive impact and it would go down 10 to 15 cents. Again, all within the bounds of what the board has approved before as a range. So if you looked at the study that we did for phase 7, which is the cities that will come online, Port Hueneme, La Cañada, Flint Ridge, and Linwood, when we last presented those numbers to you, it was 32, 2 cents, and 27. So actually a wider range of outcomes, but also what the board at that time considered manageable. We didn't do as big of a range in phase 6. It was kind of like, oh, we were going to be about 15, 17 cents. In fact, it was of increase to bills. In fact, it's resulted in a decrease to bills and a benefit to existing customers. So it can very much fluctuate. Next slide, please. So just in terms of process and timeline, so if you were to vote to invite these candidate cities to join CPA today, they have a few month sprint to pass ordinances to join the JPA. We would, if they do so, we would then conduct a public hearing at our December 4th meeting, and we would submit an implementation plan by the end of the year, or an implementation plan update to the CPUC. The CPUC has 90 days from the end of the year to acknowledge and act on the implementation plan, but there is at least a 1 calendar year waiting period. So that's that January to December 2026, when we would start preparing all the things we need to do to enroll new customers, and then service would begin in 2027. We haven't put in the resolution today what date in 2027. Sometimes that's a discussion with the CPUC. Sometimes we've added customers in March. This time we're adding customers in October. There's benefits and risks to either one. We're going to be looking at that over the next few months and come back with a recommendation in December, should these 2 new cities end up joining. Finally, I will note on the recommendation that the executive committee discussed this and voted unanimously to recommend to you all, the full board, that it make these invitations. And I'll stop there and see if there are any questions or comments.
Fantastic. Thank you. Let's start with Director Erickson.
Thank you very much, Ted. This is really great news. I'm really happy to hear about this. My one question is, and I know we email corresponded over a couple of cities. I'm trying to be the CPA ambassador wherever I can, and I would love a button that says join CPA, apply here. It only takes 6 to 8 years. But that ultimately is my question, and I'd say that facetiously, even though I just butchered that word. But why? Could you maybe explain, just for the, and Deborah and I were trying. Deborah did a really good job in like 1 minute explaining it to me on Monday. But maybe for everybody else's discernment, we could know why it takes so long. Is there any ability to refine that timeline at all? Is there an appetite to? I get that this process needs to be handled with real great care, so I don't want to streamline. I know that's a triggering word to many people, but I think that the more we can talk about CPA's work and show the results, it's really helpful to us as we go out there. So that was my question. Thank you.
Yeah, the timeline used to be shorter. There was the history of this is that between 2016 and 2018, there was the baby boom of CCAs around the state. There was expansion of the original CCA, Marine Clean Energy. San Jose started, the eastern part of the Bay Area started, Peninsula Clean Energy started, we started. There was a mad rush to CCAs right at that. And the regulators of the system, namely the CPUC, got really scared about the reliability impacts. And all these folks starting, it's a very risky time when you're starting up new. And they wanted to make sure, particularly around resource adequacy, that everybody, all these news entities had the proper contracts in place to handle that. Remember, at that time, Matt was in a different spot at Edison on the other side of this issue. And you can discern from him over a drink sometime about the. But ultimately, the CPUC decided to come in and make this 1 year waiting period. So really, the reason that it's 2 years is because there's at least a calendar year waiting period. That used to be 3 months, and you could just do it. And we here at CPA tried to rush to start more quickly. We had a very favorable rate and PCIA environment at the time, and the commission put an end to that. So, is there appetite to make it easier or quicker? I certainly have an appetite to make it easier and quicker, but I don't think that the commission does, and it's really a CPUC. It's a resolution that they would have to undo. Yes, follow up.
Thank you. Is the 1 year waiting period too in case cities backtrack? Like, I know elections happen and sometimes people pull out of things. People just mentioned the presidential cancellation policy that's going rampant everywhere on things that were approved and not approved. Is that also part of this process?
Not really. I mean, once that implementation plan is approved by the CPUC, we internally are full bore acquiring new energy on behalf of the new city a year or more ahead of. So if the city were to back out at that point, they would be liable for those costs that we incurred on their behalf. And so that's a pretty strong disincentive to pull out. So I don't think I would not have put that hope cities might pull out on the CPUC kind of thing. And I know that's not what you were implying, but that was not really where they were thinking. It was more about the resource adequacy and the reliability of the whole system while there was mass load migration going on. But we follow up with every city that's interested. A lot of times they're just kicking the tires. A lot of times it's one council member out of several, and it doesn't go anywhere. So by the time you all see it, it's there's pretty good consensus among the cities.
Thank you. Director Munoz-Guevara.
Sure. Just want to give a comment and just say thank you for the presentation and for being just so thorough, no matter how small the city is, and really breaking everything down. Obviously, I'm very, very excited to welcome my neighboring city of Cudahy, and I think it's very, very timely. And you mentioned the Delta fuel jet. That anyways, it like fell over at elementary school and homes and a lot of things. And so literally just last week, after almost 6 years, Delta finally agreed to a $79 million settlement. And so, it's there's that win for the community, and also just now like this is real environmental justice, is giving consumers and folks the choice to have cleaner power delivered as well. So it feels very timely that we're doing this. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments here in the room before we move to our remote locations? Okay. I see a hand at the COG.
Yeah, my question to Ted, remember the last conversation we had, what was the outcome of when we can add another city, or how big are we don't want to get?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we did have this discussion at the board retreat in 2024, and it was sort of came across in two parts. The first was there was a real market crunch back then for energy, and prices were going out of, really spiraling. Renewable energy in particular was getting very expensive. We had two very large projects that we were waiting to come online before we felt comfortable that to get back to Julian's sort of development risk issues. The other question that we talked about at the board retreat was how big in terms of number of cities. This is already a big board. We function pretty well through the committee system, but to your point, Cedric, how big is too big? So those were the two questions that we discussed at the board retreat. On the first one, those market conditions, as you can see from the studies, those have really dissipated. So in terms of our ability to take on another 1% of load, I have no concerns. Those two big solar projects that we talked about are now successfully online. In fact, we just, with this extra SunZia project, we didn't need that additional renewable energy until 2029. So we're feeling very, very comfortable about the market conditions. On the sort of how big can this agency get and still feel like it can serve the communities and be local and not bureaucratic, and is a great question. In my head, I've always thought of 40 as a magic number to re-engage that discussion. I don't think we'll do it in the 2025 board retreat, but certainly in 2026, it's always good to revisit governance questions and how you function with a board of 38 or 40, how you fund community programs, how you do all of the things that we like to do at a size. The board may at some point say that's enough and cap it, or we might look at other forms of decision making and governance like other large JPAs have, or we might say it's working okay. So definitely noted, Cedric, that I certainly haven't forgotten that conversation, and will want, if we get to that magic 40 number, to have it again.
Based on today's information, my motion is to approve staff's recommendation.
I don't see any other questions or comments. And
Oh, sorry, we have one more question.
you do? Okay, go ahead.
Just when we're, and it's not real impactful because these will be very small members of the agency, but when you're talking about others, Torrance, Long Beach, something in between, when we're looking at the feasibility study, of course, prices are the main thing we're looking at, I guess, RA and otherwise. But what about the options choices that the cities make? Do we model for that? For example, if a city were all lean power, that would have a very big impact, as opposed to if a city had an average profile, and that gets to industrial versus residential mix in that city. How is that handled?
Yeah, so definitely we look at the load profile and of the cities. That's a big part of the customer composition. It's a big part of the study, the feasibility study. I think there's a couple of, let me break apart that question into two. So the first is, what's their preferred energy option? We did model that. In fact, in the board pack, in the appendix, there's what happens if these cities did lean, clean, or 100% green. We put them in there. The range doesn't change very much. But what does impact feasibility studies quite a bit is the customer composition. And so you're right. Let's just say it was a Torrance. There's oil refineries in Torrance that would have a particularly interesting load. It actually might be a good load for us, not very spiky. But we definitely look at that. I think if we were to ever to look at adding a city as big as Long Beach, they haven't approached us, so I'm not projecting or manifesting in any way here. Rex Richardson, I know you're listening. All right. All you skag vets, and a dear friend. If we were to ever look at a place like Long Beach, one would imagine that we would implement that in stages, not all in 1 year. You might look at I don't know if we can do that, but you might do a sort of a longer term thing to reduce risk. Again, we're getting into way higher speculation as a way of answering your question, Steve. But yes, we look at that all quite a bit.
Well, that's very reassuring, and I would like to second Director Hicks's motion.
All right. Are there any other questions or comments before we move? I just want to echo that this is very exciting. I'm agree with Director Munoz Guevara that this, is a very exciting step for us. For those of you who've been around a few years, like I have, like Director Gold, obviously we've grown in fits and spurts. And so to be able to grow like this is fantastic. To be able to grow with very small incremental load and impact is really a dream, especially that we are filling those mission statements of ours when it comes to environmental justice and filling in our geographic holes. I think it's win-win-win. So I will third the motion and send it over to our clerk for a roll call vote.
Thank you. I have a motion by Director Hicks and a second by Director Zuckerman to approve item 13 as presented. Chair Klein Lopez, how do you vote?
Aye.
Director Maloney?
Yes.
Director Gold?
Yes.
Director Albrecht?
Yes.
Director Santangelo? Director Santangelo, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Director Hicks?
Let me see. Yes.
Director Kalaikai?
Yes.
Director McMorrin?
Yes.
Director Montero?
Yes.
Director Kraus?
Yes.
Director Fossen?
Yes.
Director Campbell?
Yes.
Director Munoz Guevara?
Yes.
Director Riggins?
Yes.
Director Lesser?
I just to be a little different.
Thank you. Director Belden?
Yes.
Director Barrett?
Yes.
Director Ellison?
Yes.
Director Perello?
Yes.
Director Mueller?
Yes.
Director Hernandez? Director Waller?
Yes.
Director Zuckerman?
Yes.
Director Crosswhite?
Yes.
Director Parkhurst?
Aye.
Director Rhodes?
Yes.
Director Ferguson?
Yes.
Director Chen?
Yes.
Director Newman?
Aye.
Vice Chair Lopez?
Yes.
Director Erickson?
Heck yes.
Director Galvez?
Yes.
Director Pacheco?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you to staff for working on that. And please keep us posted how it's going. I know you will. Our final agenda item before we move on to updates is an information item. And just want to set this up by saying this is very much information. We are not asking for any action today other than feedback. This is an exciting possibility that we're throwing out to you as an additional rate structure. We discussed it in XCOM, and it was a very robust discussion with many, many questions. So I just want to make it clear before I turn it over that this is a very new and not very hammered out in great detail idea. And the goal is to get your feedback so that when staff comes back to us, they have more direction on what we might present to our customers regarding some alternative rates that might save everybody a little money. So with that, I will turn it over to you again, Ted, to set it up for Karen, it looks like.
That was a perfect setup, so I won't take the time and just introduce Karen Schmidt, our Senior Director of Rates and Strategy. And this is very much rates and strategy to give a little presentation and get your feedback.
Good afternoon, directors. Very happy to be here to talk to you about our potential TOU Smart default pilot proposal. I'm going to start with a bit of background about TOU rates, a refresher for some of you, maybe some new information for others. Time of use and other time varying or dynamic rates can and have been used as a tool for lowering electricity bills, lowering energy procurement costs, and lowering greenhouse gas emissions. And this is particularly the case and becoming more so with the rise in smart devices and other automated technology like electric vehicles that can make it much easier to take advantage of those time varying prices. Designing and implementing these rates is based on some assumptions about how customers can and will react to varying price signals. And of course, testing and validating these assumptions is important in being able to actually deliver the potential benefits of those rates. In June of last year, as you may recall, the board approved a new residential time of use rate for CPA customers, which had lower daytime rates in exchange for slightly higher overnight rates to encourage customers to shift their electrical usage, whether that's EV charging or other electrical appliances, to the daytime when energy is cheapest and cleanest. And what we would like to do is understand whether, in fact, this rate is or will influence customer behavior among customers who already have high levels of electrification and or EVs. So to this end, we've been considering a 2-year pilot to default approximately 2,600 customers onto this new TOU Smart rate in order to assess its impact on customer behavior and bills, as well as on CPA energy costs and emissions. These 2,600 customers would be chosen from among our existing population of customers who are enrolled in the TOUD prime rate. There are about 36,000 of those in our territory. This is a rate which is designed specifically for customers with high electrical load from electric vehicles or appliances like heat pumps or for water heating or space heating. Customers who in our thinking about the pilot, customers who were defaulted into the pilot would be able to opt out of the pilot, switch back to their previous rate at any time, and they would also receive bill protection for the duration of the pilot. We believe that the results from this pilot could help inform future rate design recommendations that we would bring to the board to support additional beneficial load shifting. As Chair Klein-Lopez noted, this is an information item only. We are at this point seeking feedback from you to help us refine the proposal and determine, whether we should continue pushing forward and potentially bringing it back to you for approval in the future. Next slide. So thank you. So we'll start with a little bit of background on time of use rates. So simply put, time of use rates are rates that vary by time of day and season. Typically, as the chart on the right shows, they have an on-peak rate that is higher during the hours when electricity prices are highest and demand is highest, and then an off-peak price the rest of the day when the rates are considerably lower. These are in contrast to what are referred to as tiered rates, also sometimes referred to as flat rates. Up until recently, most residential customers in California were on these so-called flat rates or tiered rates, known as the domestic rate in SCE lingo. They're flat because they do not vary by time of day. So on the chart, the tiered rate is represented by that flat green line. The price is the same at all hours of the day. They're tiered because once you reach a certain level of total usage in a month, when your kilowatt hour usage goes above a certain level, you bump up to a higher rate, so a higher tiered rate. Again, still a flat rate. It doesn't change by time of day. It's only based on your total consumption. So the benefits of time of use rates, the reason we're talking about time of use rates are that time of use rates can better align the prices people pay for electricity with the underlying costs. And in the chart, the dashed line is a representative CAISO summer market electricity price forwards. And you can see that the prices, in fact, do peak around the time that of the 4 to 9 p.m. TOU on peak periods. The expectation is that that price signal will help encourage customers to shift their usage to lower cost hours, which reduces their bill. And also, aligns the price that they're paying with the underlying cost to serve that load. Next slide. So TOU rates have been around for several years. For residential customers, they've been around since the 2010s. They've been enabled significantly by the adoption, implementation of smart meters, widespread adoption across California. In fact, almost all commercial customers and all solar customers are now required in California to be on time of use rates. And as you may recall, in the early part of this decade, in 21, 22, residential customers served by investor-owned utilities across the state were also shifted to default time of use rates. This transition was taken after a number of pilots were conducted to test the impact on customer behavior, to the timing of the time of use periods, the impact on economically vulnerable households and other design factors. Again, as you may recall, if you were here at the time, the CPA board deliberated on whether to follow suit. We were not required by the CPUC to switch our customers to time of use rates on the generation side. But after thorough consideration, the board decided to follow suit with the TOU transition and to continue to mirror SCE's rate design. This was in part in recognition of the value of time of use rates for the reasons mentioned, and also to minimize customer confusion, to have the same rate structure on the generation side as on the delivery side of our customer bills. So although TOU rates, do a better job of aligning costs with rates, in fact, the state policy has prioritized giving residential customers a choice as opposed to imposing the time of use rates on all customers. So while, as I said, most commercial customers are required to be on time of use rates, and although time of use rates are now the default for new residential customers can choose to not be on a time of use rate. They can choose to stay on or switch back to a tiered flat rate. They also have a choice among there are currently 3 different flavors of residential time of use rates that they can choose between. The default that SCE places new customers on is the TOU D4. This is the rate that has the peak period from 4 to 9 p.m. Again, unless a customer requests to stay on the flat rate or a different time of use rate. The net of the default shift in the early part of this decade and the turnover of accounts and new move-ins is that across our service territory, about 60% of our residential customers are on time of use rates. As I mentioned earlier, it's the increasing deployment of smart devices and apps are enabling customers and service providers that work with our customers to adjust energy usage much more easily and automatically in response to time of use signals. And in an extension of that principle, we are collaborating with SCE on their expanded dynamic rates pilot starting later in this year, which will enable customers to try out even more granular time varying prices that change hourly based on the market, based on market energy prices. Next slide. So in addition to the desirability of shifting load from the early evening, that 4 to 9 on peak period, away from that time, with the rise of solar generation and electrification technologies, we're also seeing that there is a potential benefit to shifting usage from overnight to the daytime hours when energy, again, is cheapest and cleanest. There's potential benefits for CPA, for our customers, and for the grid in promoting this shift. TOU price differentials, the difference between the prices for those different times of day, again, are one of the potential tools to promote this kind of beneficial load shifting and better align our rates with our costs. We currently, as I mentioned, we have continued our practice from the beginning of mirroring SCE's rate structure and rate design. And we currently set our own price differentials and time of use periods based on SCE's rates. And one of the results of that is we have little data to inform a different approach, a modification of those differentials. Some of the key questions that we're interested in getting more insight into are what kinds of customers, which customer types would be most receptive and responsive to different price signals? How big a price differential is needed to promote behavior change by our customers? And at the end of the day, how would those differentials and load shifts affect both customer bills and CPA financial outcomes? Next slide. So that brings us to our TOU smart rate and potential pilot. So as I mentioned, last year in June, the board approved the introduction of a new TOU rate that we're now calling the TOU Smart rate. We originally and inelegantly had it named the TOU-D-Prime-SOP rate. Our communications and marketing department recoiled in horror and came up with a much better name, TOU Smart. We introduced this as an optional rate for customers who are already on the TOU-D Prime rate. The TOU-D Prime rate, as I mentioned, that was introduced back in 2019 as an option for residential customers with high energy usage. And again, the difference between TOU Smart and the TOU-D Prime, which is depicted in the graphs on the bottom of the page, so again, the TOU-D Prime just has the two periods, the on-peak from 4 to 9, the off-peak every other hour of the day. The TOU Smart rate has a lower rate during the daytime hours from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. And a little bit higher rate in the overnight hours. Again, reflecting the differential in costs and emissions during the daytime versus overnight. Next slide. So staff believes that a default TOU Smart pilot would enable us to evaluate the impact of these price signals on customer behavior and costs. We arrived at the number of 2,600 approximately customers based on statistical analysis. This is a sample size that would enable us to detect a meaningful difference in monthly usage with a 95% confidence. And we believe that this would enable us to evaluate the effectiveness of this price differentials in promoting behavior change across a variety of customer segments. It would help us evaluate, customer acceptance and willingness to entertain rate design alternatives, as well as, of course, the impact on our revenue and cost of service. The results would help inform future rate and program design at CPA. For instance, if the rate results in significant shift in customer behavior, we could consider making it a default rate for all TOU-D Prime customers. We would hope to use the insights into customer price elasticity to inform modifications to other TOU price differentials and improvements to other CPA rates and even customer program and incentive levels. We would collect data from customers through post-pilot surveys that could help inform future customer segmentation and targeting for marketing and education campaigns. Next slide. So there are a number of natural questions, and the executive committee came up with many of them. So we've tried to address them here. So one obvious question is, why make it a default pilot? So a default pilot means that we would choose the customers and automatically enroll them. So why do that? Why not just allow customers to opt into to the rate? So we could take either approach and attempt to use the data to measure behavior change, either through an opt-in or through the default. And in fact, we are going to begin promoting voluntary enrollment on the TOU Smart rate this fall in conjunction with marketing of our EV Smart Charge program. However, we believe that even with substantial marketing spend, that relying on voluntary enrollment is likely to garner, at most maybe several hundred TOU Smart enrollments over the next 1 to 2 years, which would be well below the level that we estimate we would need in order to have confidence that any load shifting changes we're seeing are in fact related to the new rate. It's also the case that relying on self-selection by customers to opt into the rate may skew the population of customers on the rate to those who will benefit from the rate without actually making any behavior change. Folks who assess that they already charge more during the day and overnight, and so they'll save money without making any change in their energy usage. A broad sample size that includes non-EV owners also would enable us to assess the impact of the rate differentials on a variety of customer types and segments rather than focusing exclusively on electric vehicle owners. Next slide. So another natural question is, why do a random selection? Why not focus the pilot on customers who we believe will benefit from the TOU Smart rate? So this could include either what we refer to as structural benefitters. These are those customers who would see a reduction in their bills without any change in their energy usage. Again, the example would be an EV customer who already charges their vehicle during the daytime. The other category would be customers who we know are able to shift their overnight load to the daytime. For instance, EV customers who sometimes work from home, currently, charge overnight, but could charge during the day. For the first group, the structural benefitters, we probably can use historical usage data to identify and target these customers. The effect of this would be to reduce their bills. It would also reduce our revenue, but it wouldn't provide us any insights into the effectiveness of the rate in changing customer behavior. For the second group, the reality is that we have limited insight into customers' ability to shift load, such as whether they work from home, if they use their EVs daily, during the daytime for commuting, whether they own smart devices. And this is part of, the insight that we would seek to get by broadening the participation in the pilot. Next slide. So if we were to proceed, what we've been thinking about in terms of the structure of the pilot is that we would select the participants, again, around 2,600, randomly from the pool of about 36,000 TOUD Prime customers. We would focus on non-NEM customers, customers without solar systems, because based on the structure of the NEM compensation, they would potentially actually be disadvantaged by this rate. So we would exclude them from the default pilot. And we would also limit the participation to customers who have been with CPA for at least 1 year. Very similar to the rollout of the default residential TOU rates statewide, we would send notifications to the pilot participants via mail at least twice before the beginning of the pilot, explaining their enrollment, how they can save money on the rate potentially, where to get more information. and how to disenroll and opt out of the pilot if they choose. We're still, working on the details of the full communications plan, but we would anticipate sending additional educational information and tips about how customers are performing during the pilot. And then as well as sending them information at the end of the first year and the second year of the pilot with information about their how they're doing with bill protection. The bill protection would ensure that they're not going to lose anything by participating in the pilot. If their bills end up being higher on the new rate than they would otherwise have been, they will get a credit for that difference at the end of the pilot. And again, customers could discontinue their participation in the pilot at any time. Next slide. A potential implementation timeline, if the board were to decide that we should move forward with this fall, would be to prepare the customer communications plan and materials at the end of the year, launch the outreach in January and February, begin the enrollment of customers on the new rate in March in the spring. By March of 2027, they would get a communication about their performance during the first year of the pilot. And they would get a final communication in March 2028 when the bill protection period ends, at which point we would be evaluating and communicating the results of the pilot and considering whether to continue the rate, modify it, discontinue it, or other options. Next slide. That is the end of my presentation. So we welcome your feedback, and depending on your feedback, we could bring a proposal back to you for approval as early as next month. But look forward to hearing your thoughts.
All righty, thank you. I'm going to shake it up and start with our remote locations. City of Calabasas, why don't we start with you? You poor guys, you never first. Let's start with you. I know, I used to be there.
See, you go away and we're not first anymore. So Karen, thank you very much for the presentation. It's a really interesting pilot and should provide lots of interesting info. I'm wondering if you can provide a little more color on the randomization of the 2,600 customers. You mentioned that it's not voluntary, it's not targeted, and you went into some detail about different kinds of energy usage. I'm wondering if we're confident that we'll be capturing other or a broad variety of different kinds of customers. So single family versus multifamily, difference by geographic areas, demographic differences. Are we confident that the random selection will get us good info about how a broad variety of customers will use this, and also which customers would benefit most from this?
So I will say, first of all, I am not myself a statistician, but our rates team, our load forecasting team, spent a fair amount of time deliberating on the design of the pilot and looking at different ways to select pilot participants, including the question of, like ensuring that we get a distribution across different climate zones, et cetera. And our team does include folks who are experts at statistics, and they ultimately concluded that that a reasonable approach, and certainly the simplest to implement, would be a random selection from within that pool of 36,000 customers. I will note there is a slide in the appendix that shows the distribution of that pool across our service territory. I didn't look closely at this, but I believe the distribution, more or less mirrors the size of all of those agencies. So the smaller agencies, of course, have a smaller number. It is possible that through random selection, some of the smallest member agencies might end up not having a participant.
I'll just add one more thing, which is the pool at which folks would be selected would not be the pool of 800 and some odd thousand residential customers. It's only people who already are in a smaller pool of having been put on or selected the TOU prime rate, which means already you've been determined to have a lot of electrical load. You likely have an EV or two or a heat pump water heater or a heat pump for space heating. So the pool is already somewhat narrow.
I have a question also. So Marianne in Calabasas also. I know that the materials were showing with education and things like that, but do you think it's possible that we can have some type of education model that we can bring back to our individual cities to try and teach people? Because for me, my remembering is that we were always encouraged to do more things at night. And so this seems like a complete 180 on power usage. And it makes sense why, but I think it would be helpful if we could also just try and educate our community directly of this switch of power consumption.
I think that's a great point, and I will note that our communications and marketing team is already working on, building out new and improved educational materials for our website and other channels around time of use rates and how to benefit from them, both shifting usage out away from that peak period, that 4 to 9 period when prices are really expensive, but also layering in this messaging around the value of daytime load versus overnight.
Thank you.
Any other questions from Calabasas? You're good?
One more. One more.
Okay.
Yeah, we got one more. We'll make it a threesome today.
Great.
As I'm watching the presentation, this is Ed Albrecht, council member from Calabasas. I'm trying to articulate what I'm going to say when we have our council meeting and make some announcements. And to me, this is really a way of life in the future. To use our energy efficiently over a 24-hour period. And you're breaking new ground because you've got people, yes, in a solar generation, you've got people that on the other end of the spectrum don't understand it because they haven't really been in a position to put it in place in their houses or otherwise through cars. So it's going to be an interesting dynamics to explain that in the marketing department. And will be as much help as possible because I think, we're all for it, but we need to educate and help wean people into this as they become energy users in a different way. So quite a leadership role that we're playing in this to bring it out to the community. Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
All right, let's move over to the South Bay cities, the COG.
And currently, if someone is, I don't know whether it would be Calpine or SCE, they have the individual meter data, correct?
Yes, as do we.
Right. So if someone calls up and says, I'm looking at possibly enrolling in TOU Smart, can they look backwards at their historic usage and say, you know, this looks like it might work well for your household?
I mean, so if they call the 800 number, there's not going to be somebody who can just provide that. We don't have a tool built for the customer service representatives to do that. If somebody reached out to us, that's something we could put together, but it's not something that we just have off the shelf ready for anyone to use.
Would it be long-term for, again, I don't know whether it would be Edison or ourselves, to look at the possibility of being able to provide that information, maybe not during that call, but shortly thereafter?
I think that's something we could look at.
Yeah, Edison has built a little bit of this where you can compare which of the different TOU rates would be best, might be best for you. They caveat it very heavily, but that's how most of the people actually who are on TOU D prime ended up on TOU D prime, is that when the mass default happened, that's the one they ended up on Edison's recommendation. So, but then they wouldn't have it for TOU Smart because Edison's not offering TOU Smart. And this is sort of one of the first ground breaks of us, is like divorcing our rate structure from their basic rate structure.
I will also note we're very much, I would say, in the early stages of development, but we are working closely across our load forecasting rates and communications team around building a kind of a widget calculator for our website that would enable customers to play around with, yes, I have an EV, yes, I have a heat pump, and maybe, here's a slider that, if I shift, I think I can shift 10% or 50% of my overnight load to daytime. How much money would I save? That kind of tool that people can play with to get a sense of the impact of changing their energy usage.
That'd be great, especially if we had staff, customer service, who could kind of help them, walk through those steps when and if. If all 60% of our TOU people were on smart, do we have any idea what the impact on margins would be for CPA?
Well, I mean, so the rate's designed to be revenue neutral. So there would be, at least theoretically, there would be no impact on revenue. Assuming that assumes no one does anything differently. But part of the purpose of the pilot is to see if you put people on this rate, will they actually change their behavior? That would have an impact on revenue, but it would also reduce our costs.
Okay.
This is Dr. Monique Edwards-Greer, Chief Administrative Officer. Just to add a little more context to what's already been said, Southern California Edison does have a rate comparison tool on their website. The caveat is that it does not have embedded in it CCA rates. So the customer doesn't get a true glimpse of what the actual rate comparison is if they are a CCA customer. But we work very hard to solve for that. So on our website right now, there is a rate comparison calculator. What I will say is that over time, we build in different rates that work in that rate calculator, and we do attempt to factor in the delivery portion of the customer's bill to give a better picture of that. So with a pilot, we typically don't build that in right away into our rate comparison tool because it's just that, it's a pilot. But as we gather information and data, then we would then decide, okay, let's build this into our online rate calculator. As was mentioned through our customer service number, any of our customers can call and ask for a rate calculation or a rate comparison. Our agents are not equipped to do that immediately, but they do have the ability to transferred that to our internal customer care team, which we do have staff that will follow up with that customer if needed.
Thank you.
One more question here. I had a follow-up question with regard to the benefits to us as a utility for the time of use rates. I have not researched what the benefits have been to other utilities like Edison, but one would assume that it offers some benefit because the whole point of it is when energy is in higher demand and higher rates apply, that we're able to pass that along to customers. But I think, did I just hear that it would be de minimis? Can you explain that? Because particularly to the question that was asked from the director from Calabasas, how do we articulate this to our public? Why are we doing this? What are the potential benefits? Because in theory, we'd like to be able to pass along any savings to our customers, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. Apologies for muddying the waters there. So what I was saying is the rate is designed to be revenue neutral, assuming no change in customer behavior. So that means if everyone just uses the same amount of electricity as they use now, but they go onto this rate, they pay a little less during the day and a little more at night, but the total bill is the same. The point of this, though, is to generate customer behavior change. And so if that happened, it would both save CPA and the customer money. The magnitude of that just depends on how much behavior change you get.
Okay. Helpful. Is there a shortage, by the way, at high usage times a day, or can we project that again as part of our messaging as to why we'd be exploring this?
So there can be shortages, particularly during the on-peak period, and I think we've done a good job of training people 4 to 9 p.m. That's the peak period. That's when we generally see shortages on the system. But then what we're solving for here is a second thing. So that's the most critical. The second thing is that at night we get less of the renewable energy. And so as Karen showed in the slide, you have higher greenhouse gas emissions at night, and you also have more expensive power because a lot of that can end up being natural gas after midnight when the batteries run out. So during the day, we have an abundance of solar, and that's where we're able to get less costly, less emissions intensive energy during the day. And so that's where it's shifted the conversation to trying to get people to use more of that daytime energy.
Thank you, Matt. Helpful.
Okay, let's answer some of the questions and address comments here in downtown. I'll start with Director Crosswhite.
So just real quick, I know we had a robust discussion of this at our executive committee meeting. But one thing I was thinking about since then was whether or not we would consider, because we had talked about there being sort of a 1 and a 2 year period. And anyway, I don't want to get all that, but basically if it really didn't work for someone, would we just default them back? Because I started thinking about like, would we upset our customers if they didn't read their bills real well and they just paid them, which I know our household is wont to do sometimes. And then a couple of years later realized, oh, I've been paying more because I didn't pay enough attention to the flyer insert that came in my bill. So I'm just wondering if that would be something that we would think about, was if this is someone that this just clearly didn't work for, at the end of the pilot period, would we consider just opting them back to where they were? So anyway, just something for us to think about. But it was something I thought about.
Thank you. Director Ferguson was next.
Yeah, in reviewing this, I think that it's there has to be some way to get information and data to make informed decisions, and so I commend the efforts in trying to figure out a way to do that. One of the things that I've experienced, at least as it was dealt with like customer load, is that a lot of that's kind of like temperature and location based. So it's not necessarily just a matter of people's choice of behavior. So like, for instance, I think it was like areas in like downtown Long Beach that I saw were like winter peakers, where most areas were summer peakers. And so as we kind of shift to like 100% electric development in areas where we're kind of like taking out natural gas and kind of removing people of having alternatives, if you will, as far as like where their home energy and usage comes from, I'm not entirely sure how much people can shape that. And so as we're looking at kind of like this dispersed model of like 2,600 people all over, I think there should just be some acknowledgement of like where they're located geospatially in doing this analysis, because I think that might be a lot more of an indicator of their loading than just the rate structure. And then I think the second part of that tends to do with like the socioeconomics of a household, wherein for a lot, if the energy usage is a small percentage of their monthly cost, I think shifting their behavior is a lot less likely because it's not a huge net impact as on a percentage basis of their monthly spends. So, and that was basically it. Yeah.
Great feedback. Thank you. I saw Director. Oh, you want to make a comment? You good?
No, no.
Oh, okay. Direct. Yeah, I just see a lot of note taking over here. Yes. Director Fossen.
I just wanted to quickly say that I appreciate the carve out for new communities. We are actually already pushing back against some confusion around people thinking that they might be put on different TOU rates. And so to have us turn around after pushing and saying, no, no, you'll be on the exact same rate, and then have it default out underneath them would probably not work very well. So I appreciate that exclusion for us.
Thank you. Director Belden.
I know we're short on time, so if you want.
I think if for those who can
Next time.
stay, I think they like the feedback.
Well, it was more of a question because I know that a large portion of our usage is actually commercial users, I believe, right? So I was curious how much outreach we already do to them to get them to shift, because it's probably a little easier to target their folks that are already market-driven individuals. They can just move their operations day and say, okay, we start this hour and we close this hour. It's just curious if there's much movement on that front.
I mean, they're all on, almost every commercial customer is on a time of use rate already. You know, I think the evidence is mixed about how much commercial customers can shift their load versus an individual. You know, if you're in the small business sector, if you're just running an ice cream shop, I don't know why that example came to me. You know, you can't shut off the freezers. And so you know, and then certain industrial processes require you to run all the time. Frankly, we've not seen a lot of commercial customers get very interested in our demand shifting programs, except for those who have already very high levels of automation. So for a commercial customer, this is really the kind of just TOU in general really works well if they have flexible processes for whatever they're doing and then have invested in an automation. This is in the commercial realm, this is really most seen either at very high level or industrial, and then in the agricultural sector, where a lot of times it's about when you're turning on your irrigation, when you're turning on your pumps, which can be moved during the day.
Okay. We do have a couple more questions. It is 4 o'clock. For those who can stay, that's fantastic, because I think, you know, this is very important for staff. So we have a couple more questions and then management report, and then we'll be out of here. So next I'll do Director Munoz Guevara.
Thank you. Just really have a question with how staff is thinking. If, you know, this is going to be a 36,000 person sample size that we're trying to get, the 2,600 to get an accurate count, or an accurate pool rather. How you guys could address if for whatever reason there's a much higher attrition rate, like, you know, like at what point do you intervene? And do you have any concerns, I guess, with getting to that pool, since, you know, it's just under 10% of those available that we would need?
So two points on that. One is that number, actually, we did factor in a buffer for an assumed opt-out rate. And we looked at, there's not a lot of data available, but, looked at data, for instance, from the residential TOU pilots on default rates to estimate that. I think that, if we do see, a more significant attrition, I think we would have the ability, if we chose to, pull additional, basically pull additional names out of the hat for the pilot. Yeah.
All right, Director Parkhurst.
As a part of the communication, have you thought about giving some guidance on things to think about? There may be some things that you don't change very often, your thermostat, if you've got pool filters, if you've got whatever operations you've got, there may be things you don't think about, or even guidance of okay, pre-cool your house from here to here. If you want to shift behavior, having some guidance for them. Even if there's any ways to interface with apps. I don't know that there's so many different apps. I don't know if that's even possible, but at least having the guidance of say, here's how you can do to shift, here are things you could do to shift your load to actually save you. And here's kind of even rank order, or here's the things you should consider first, instead of, switching out light bulbs, because those are going to be smaller than, running air conditioners, something like that.
Yeah, and I'll just say, I think both for the pilot and across the board, we are looking to step up our game on providing information to customers about all the ways in which they can benefit from load shifting. Yeah.
All right, and Director Gold.
Thank you all. I'll try and be brief. A couple of questions. First off, I heard you say that the bill protection is now for both years. Originally, it was only the first year. So we're now going to extend bill protection for 2 years. Secondly, whatever the opt-in or opt-out is here, it'll have no impact on transmission. Or will it? Transmission cost. Will they see that impact in their bill?
I mean, if you had a mass shift, there are congestion costs at certain times of the day. And so if you had mass shifting, you could alter that, but not at this level, no.
So when you modeled this and whatever the potential cost savings are for the customer, it anticipated that the only real cost saving they were going to see was on the acquisition of electricity. Yes. Yeah. So right now, for most people, that's somewhere between a third and a half of their actual bill. So the actual impact that they'll see will be pretty small. Is that true? Okay. And the last is just a comment. I said it the last time we talked about this, but I must be missing something, because we're talking about changing behavior. If somebody's not home in the middle of the day, it doesn't matter what their behavior is, this is not going to have an impact. And so the only people for whom this will have an impact are those who are actually home in the middle of the day. Assuming I'm talking on the residential side, only those people who are home in the middle of the day who have the ability to change their behavior. For everybody else, it's a no-brainer. They're not going to care. It doesn't make a difference. So and I know you've been through the statistics and all of that, but I guess I'm confused why a random sampling. I mean, if a third of the people who you're going to sample are not home during the daytime, then that's a third of the people who this will have no impact and you won't see anything. And statistically, that takes a lot of people out of your sampling of what you really want to know, which is of those people for whom there is a decision to be made. Will they make the right decision?
Yeah, so we went back, we took this back, we heard that feedback at the executive committee and some other things that you saw we changed. We don't know who's at home during the day.
Well, you can tell that by their load.
We really don't. We just don't. So we could have a longer conversation about this. There's things you can see, but I'll just tell you, because I have all the apps. Like I was just looking, my air conditioning is running right now and no one's home. Hopefully people don't know where that is. So yeah. Well, because my little kids are gonna get home in like half an hour, and I don't want it to be 90 degrees inside the house. Right? So it's and I have solar now. I got solar the last month. So we're pre-cooling before the peak period and before I'm gonna have to use my battery to run, right? So this is actually what you want people to do. Now, if you looked at my meter, I have solar, it's a different thing. But if you looked at my meter, maybe it looks like I'm home. It's cycling at different times throughout the day. But that behavior looks the same whether or not I happen to be here right now or if I'm actually at home. Like when I'm working at home, I'm using the computer. It doesn't draw like 1,000 kilowatt, or 1,000 watts to run a computer. So this is some of the problems that we run into with that. And totally take your point. There's when you take a random sample, there's sort of some dead weight loss in that sample. But that's informative too, to see, maybe we'll be able to calibrate our look at the load better, because we'll also pair this with surveys and we can ask people throughout the process, do you work from home? And maybe we'll get more information through that process about maybe there's something more discernible about someone who works from home versus not, that maybe allows us to do better targeting in the future. All things that we want to learn through the process.
Okay, I'm not going to belabor the point. You could perhaps answer the question by sending out the survey first and say, do you work from home? And then use that as a way to filter everything else. But I'm done.
All right, I'm going to take one more question from Director Chen, and then I am going to encourage everyone to keep the conversation going with staff because I don't want the time constraint of our meeting to stop the good discussion. But go ahead, Director Chen.
Okay, so I used to live in a city that had its own water and power utility. And so the concept of price discrimination, where the more you use, the more you get charged. I think in the water context, I mean, yeah, it shifted behavior. People started, manually watering rather than turning on the sprinkler. In the trash context, I'm intimately familiar with it, having known that with the various state laws when it comes to recycling, the more you throw away, the more you pay. But there's always that recycling can, which does not truly measure one's waste generation. Because if somebody just throw everything in their recycling can and instead of the trash can, it does not really shift behavior. So I'm really excited about the various options that I see here. But in terms of your presentation, talking about the Edison domestic rate, for those that don't generate a whole lot of electricity, that stay below that tier rate, I just think it invites another element because all the TOU rates seems to have higher base charge at all hours of the day. So it really actually incentivizes somebody to stay on that rate, and that there may be no change in behavior for that particular customer because that tier rate or that Edison domestic rate is steady throughout the whole day at 0.11 kilowatts. So I guess I welcome it because I feel like this is the ultimate end result in the behavior we're trying to encourage, and I think people who are rate sensitive are going to look at all those different options and select what's best for them. So I just wanted to add that comment.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for this feedback.
All right. Thank you. And like I said, please don't hesitate to send more of your thoughts to staff, since I know they want to hear from you. The committee chair updates will go fast because Director Hicks and Santangelo do not have reports. Their committees did not meet. Director Parkhurst, do you have a report?
I do. I'll make it really quick. There were two RFO committees that met on 8/15 and 8/20. There was one on innovation. And so my plug on that is hot rocks are going to be really cool. And then on 8/20, there was an RFO around the Power Share program. I think the CEO is going to talk a little about some of those projects that come online. We've got a new pipeline of those. And again, these Power Share contracts are the ones that are in lower income communities that are providing energy for those residents. So it's really exciting. And that's what and then the committee met on the 27th and approved the short list of projects from the RFO team. Thank you.
And we saw that press release go out, so thank you. All right, our management report, Ted.
Yeah. Just continuing with that theme on the power share project. So I would just want to thank and congratulate the cities of Hawthorne and Carson that saw three projects come online on warehouses as part of the power share program. We've got another half a dozen of those coming online in the next 9 months. We'll try to organize a couple of events out in Hawthorne and Carson to celebrate those rooftop solar projects. So very excited about that. And as Robert Parkhurst mentioned, we did shortlist a whole slew of new local projects to negotiate with, including, excitingly, two what are called agrovoltaic projects in Ventura County, which are the combination of solar panels with low intensity use agriculture or even sheep grazing. So a way of providing dual use of renewable energy and agriculture. Our first two projects along those lines. So excited to hopefully we can get those contracts signed and implemented in the next couple of years. Electric sheep, not from Blade Runner, which is the connection there. Yes, no, not. Stephanie Fawcett from La Cañada Flint Ridge mentioned that we are in the throes of enrollment activities for phase 7. Mostly thanks to city staff as well as our staff for dealing with all of the questions that come up. We're tracking pretty well in terms of opt-outs and opt-actions there. The next thing, back to congratulating cities, congratulations to Hermosa Beach for completing the first Energized Communities project for Clean Power Alliance, which is the all-electric upgrade of their Clark building, which operates as a community center. So I really like this project. It's a community center. It's a city-owned building. It's all electric now, including a kitchen. So when folks go into that kitchen, they can see what electric cooking looks like. So congratulations to Hermosa Beach. And the Innovation Fund is open for round 2. Your city managers and other staff know about that. The deadlines is later next month. And last but not least, there's a schedule in your management report about our upcoming meetings, including the next time we'll see most of you, which is at the board retreat. So that's my management report.
All right. Any burning comments from committee members? Nope. Okay. My report from the chair is just to say how excited I am to see you all at the board retreat, which, as Ted mentioned, is coming up on Friday, September 26th. And with that, we can adjourn the meeting. Our next regular meeting will be October 16th, which again, I want to note is off our normal cadence. It's off our normal calendar just for a whole host of reasons. So I'm sure our staff will give lots of reminders about these dates coming up. And with that, I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you all.